Does anybody know what a passport bro is? Has anybody heard this term? Davey boy, yeah, pretty good explanation. It's when incels can afford plane tickets. Pretty close. So when it comes to this topic, the first thing we need to lay out is feminism exists. That's like the number one thing we need to talk about here. Feminism exists. And unfortunately, men have been woefully subjugated to the oppressive rule of Western feminism day in and day out. And results are in. We've almost had a woman president twice. That's how big feminism has been ruling our country in the West. Almost had 2 women presidents. Isn't that crazy to think about? I'm doing tongue in cheek here because what women try to achieve, or what people try to achieve with feminism, is men and women being able to exist on a equal playing field. They're people of any gender expression, really. However, a lot of dudes don't see it like that. A lot of people feel like they've been targeted by Western feminism, and they don't think it's fair to their existence. So one instance of that is something called a passport bro. What we're going to learn from the Digital Bromad are the 3 stages of being a passport bro. So let's let him, a self-proclaimed passport bro, explain what's going on.
Here's what I learned being a passport bro.
Being a single American guy in South America, I sometimes post stuff like that, but this, and my comments get crazy. People get fucking mad. I've been traveling through South America for over a year, and here are the 3 main takeaways. First thing, and this is funny, you're exotic. You're exotic. I know it sounds crazy. You have an accent. The American accent.
Right now, what he's describing is going overseas to different countries and explaining how easy it is to get laid. And the number one reason why it's easy to get laid is because you're the exotic one. So you're being fetishized is pretty much what he's saying here.
The second thing, and this is really important on dates, people love showing off their country and love showing you things that they love. It's like back when you were a kid, you found out one of your friends never saw Space Jam, and you were like, oh my God. And then you got to be excited watching them watch it. And that happens a lot on dates. It plays into the excitement and keeps things light.
The second step of which is sharing like interests, or like not even necessarily like interests, but sharing your interests with somebody that you're on a date with, which is a normal dating experience, right? That's not exclusive to going to other countries.
And keeps things fun. Finally, number 3. And this is one that most of the comments are about. There is a stereotype or stigma around Americans being rich, which is kind of true because our currency is like the global currency. So if you make $60,000 a year, you can live like you make $120,000 a year. Pretty cool.
So the last bit is, as an American, because the US dollar is valued so much highly compared to certain other countries or currencies in the world, what you can do in America off of a $50,000 base salary is minuscule compared to what you can do in other countries. So like that's the pros of being a passport bro. And this isn't just some niche internet thing that is just like weird dudes talking about in the alpha bro sphere. There is a song called Passport Bros by Boss featuring J. Cole. Like this isn't like a small niche thing, which blew my mind because I had never heard of it. And if you look at the lyrics onto this song, obviously I can't play it due to copyright. Are you impaired? You're not there, but I'm a little. Clase Azul got me singing I love you too. Which is kind of like, hey, let me get you drunk. That way we can have sex. And this is a hookup because I'm going into a different country. So what is Passport Bros? Well, if you go into www.google.com and you look it up, one of the first sites that's going to come up is Passport Bros LLC. I don't think this is a representative sample or an overarching organization that gets to dictate what is and isn't a passport bro. But this is a company that is trying to capitalize on the passport bro movement. And so we're going to use it as a little baseline to try to figure out who are passport bros? What do they stand for? Where do they come from? Where do they go? Where do they come from? Cotton Eye Joe. So what is a passport bro? Well, it's a term used to describe a specific mindset and lifestyle choice adopted by men who have decided to pursue relationships with foreign women from different cultural backgrounds, often in countries outside their own. The passport bro mindset emerges from a range of concerns about modern Western dating and marriage culture. Among these concerns, one of the primary grievances is the perception that many Western women exhibit behaviors that are argumentative, confrontational, highly manipulative, and exhibit traits often associated with masculinity. So now we're here, and already they're letting their mask slip a little bit of it's very anti-woman, and primarily it's very anti, they just get to slap Western woman, where it's anti-women having the autonomy, right? And you can see this is a hyperlink. What's their data to back this up? It's a YouTube video from 7 years ago with 250,000 views of a woman saying how to get your man to give you money. And now look, I don't stand by what this video is in general. If you watch this video, it's going to be a lot about literally manipulating men or their partners, whoever they're dating, to give money to them when they don't necessarily need it. Okay. And yeah, there's comments that are saying, yes, sis, pop off. Like, I love this. If men want to see women in makeup, they need to pay. That's basic logic. You know, it's not a full representation of all women. It is a YouTube account with 400,000 subs. It's just like insane to be like, all Western women are manipulative. Here's proof. And then they just show a video with a couple thousand of views. It's wild to me. In addition to this, Passport Bros express concern about what they consider to be a celebration of sexually explicit and provocative behavior in modern Western hookup culture. They argue that this celebration of hypersexualized behaviors and OnlyFans sex-promoting culture, coupled with the admiration of prominent celebrity female role models who promote male manipulation and financial exploitation, has led to a steady degradation of traditional values. You're going to see the phrase traditional values used a ton. It's going to be used again as a dog whistle to mean women being independent. It's all it's going to be is the ability of women to have any amount of autonomy is kind of what we're going to be dealing with here. Furthermore, for decades, millions of men, as well as Passport Bros, have spoken out about the issue of false allegations and a lack of respect for men's perspectives within Western societies. Western women have been given a free pass by the American legal system to make false allegations against a man without any fear of financial or criminal penalty, should the accusation be found to be a complete lie. So now, whenever we talk about conservative, traditional stuff, and you wonder how can people fall for this kind of stuff? And in my opinion, it's because what they do is they bury in a nugget of truth. However, that doesn't completely invalidate a woman's right to be able to also speak out against what's happening to them. Trigger warning, we're going to be talking a little bit about sexual assault for a second. Okay, so their claim here, if a woman makes a quote-unquote false claim, then they cannot be legally reprimanded. So let's look into that. This is from Gaynell Williams, LLC, a criminal defense and personal injury representation. And it's an article reading, is it a crime to falsely accuse someone of a sex crime? False police reports and falsified evidence can mean jail time for the accuser. False accusers face fines of $100,000, an imprisonment period of 1 to 5 years, or both a fine and an imprisonment period. The American legal system has been proven time and time again to never be bad or wrong or biased, right? No, of course, I meant the opposite. So how do you wonder, like, what percent of sexual assault allegations are even found to be made up or false, right? And if we look here with the National Sexual Violence Resource Center, rape is the most underreported crime. 63% of sexual assaults are not reported to police. The prevalence of false reporting is between 2 and 10%. Now, both of these numbers are going to be hard to get empirical data about. But even if you put like a confidence interval on that, the vast majority of sexual assaults are not being reported, and a very, very slim minority are found to be falsely reported. Again, I'm not going to be naive and say that a false rape accusation can't ruin somebody's lives. There are plenty of examples of that happening. And just because somebody doesn't go to the police with a rape accusation, that doesn't mean it can't ruin somebody's life. However, the amount that's happening compared to the amount of rapes happening when there isn't any amount of either reporting or any conclusion, again, this is 63% are not reported to the police. This isn't even looking into the amount of incidents that happen that aren't even like, somebody is found guilty and put away for jail. But I think the false equivalency of them talking about how, it sucks to be a man in the West because we're always being accused falsely of doing a sexual assault and it's ruining our lives. And then to just completely keep that absent of the fact that 1 in 5 women and 1 in 16 men are sexually assaulted while in college. Like 20% of women and 7% of men sexually assaulted in college. 90% of those don't get reported. So anyway, that's enough on that. It's obviously a statement that, in my opinion, is very bad faith and trying to make it seem like false accusations are more prevalent than they are. And that's a very good point, gay lesbian. I started out by saying the American court system is really bad. And just because somebody gets exonerated or like you get found that the accusations were false, it's super hard to prove that a sexual assault happened. Even in cases where people do go through all of the quote unquote proper steps and they are the quote unquote perfect victim, that still doesn't even mean the person who did the assault is going to be reprimanded or face consequences for it. All that being said, it's an insane thing to say, like, man, women are always making stuff up. That's why we gotta leave the US. Let's get back to the website. The origins of the passport bros. The movement can be traced all the way back to World War I and World War II, in which military servicemen began to extend tours of duty overseas, exploring more parts of the world outside of the United States. During their travels abroad, many of these military men immersed themselves with these new foreign cultures and found peace, love, happiness, romance, and new meaningful opportunities. Do we think that men were joining the army because Western women sucked in the 1910s and the 1940s, and therefore they went to other countries in order to meet women? Or possibly there was a war. In one of those wars, there was drafting happening. And I don't know, maybe just because they were in different countries, they fell in love with somebody who lived there and got married to them. And this is just an example here. Workplace romance statistics. Survey shows employees regularly engage in office relationships. Workplace romance statistics show that over 60% of adults have had a workplace romance. Do we think that men are running to workplaces in order to get into a relationship because the women at home are so woke and feminist? No, it's because you spend time around people and you get to know them and then you get married. So the premise that it's like, man, those big, strong people fighting the Nazis in World War II, they knew what was up because they stopped marrying American broads. It's like, no, they just were in a different country, had sex, potentially got somebody pregnant, and then got into a long-term relationship with that person. With the steady decline of morals and decency within America and the West, which is always a dog whistle for, hey, gay people are allowed to exist now, queer people are allowed to be out in the streets, escalating weekly mass shootings, a rising cost of living, a hyper anti-masculinity movement, a highly biased family court system, paternity fraud issues, and nearly 70% of all divorces being initiated by women, it is hardly surprising that men are seeking solace abroad. Okay. And again, this is where I think that little nugget of truth can come in. But when you reference escalating mass shootings, I feels like a cop out to be like, well, of course I'm leaving America. There's mass shootings. That's why I'm going to go fetishize the different people. Like, that seems like a weird thing to include. We see there are hyperlinks here. So a hyper anti-masculinity environment. Yeah, that hyperlinked here. So this is a TikTok with less than 7,000 likes. And they're using this as like an example, proof as like stats that this is a real thing.
Damn. How to Destroy a Man Now. Yeah. This is actually a book, and it is actually about what you think it is. I'm going to read a little excerpt for you because, Chapter 1, The Damn Fundamentals. Let's begin with some introductions. We have 3 key friends or fundamentals to make it possible to destroy a man now. Damn. To damn well, it's important to know them well.
So this person puts on the creepy conspiracy TikTok audio, and then she starts talking about this book as an example to be like, all Western women are trying to ruin men's lives. This top comment is, like, in my opinion, a perfect example of this entire like fake movement of this person saying, men, start doing what they falsely accuse you of. It will stop, which is a fucking vile. It is a disgusting, vile thing to say. I can't believe that comment is up. The creator left that comment up. It has 106 likes. Let's look into this book for a second. It has 43 reviews and 112 ratings on goodreads.com. How are you going to claim that this book, again, this was linked specifically from the Passport Bros LLC website as a leading example of women fostering a hyper anti-masculinity environment. And you're linking a book that has 100 ratings. And if you look at the reviews, almost every single one of them is like, this was clearly written by a man in order to just like f with people. A lot of the women who are leaving reviews are saying this clearly wasn't written from a woman's POV. Like, why even link that TikTok? You can just make this claim and leave it empty. You don't need to link a TikTok that, in my opinion, makes your argument worse. They say, again, nearly 70% of all divorces are being initiated by women. But let's take a look. Let's take a look at divorce rates, because I didn't know. I'm not married. I have no reason to understand or to know the divorce rates. So I wanted to have a divorce rate over time and see where we are right now in America. As the country entered World War I, there was one divorce every year for every 1,000 Americans, okay? During the Roaring 20s, they went up to 1.7 divorces for every 1,000 Americans. And this was, of course, what happened in the late 1910s into the 1920s. That's when the first wave of feminism was even starting. Women gained the right to vote in America in this time frame. And so literally women were given and primarily white women, were given the slightest amount of rights that were equal to men. The slightest amount. And you get to see their divorce rates go up because maybe now women could hold a job and support herself without needing to be married to somebody. In the 1930s, up to 1.9 divorces for every 1,000 people. In the 1940s, 3.4 divorces. The divorce rate in the 50s decreased. And what do we all know about the 50s? That's like the spot that every conservative guy points to and is like, oh man, that was when it was good. Right before a certain group of people got the right to vote, right? The divorce rate was 2.5 divorces for every 1,000 people in 1950. Okay? That is less than 1% of marriages every year ended in a divorce. As we continue, in the 60s, 3.2. In the 70s, 3.5. Again, this is post movements where people are given more rights. This is post the civil rights movement. This is, in the midst of people going out and being so anti-war and the movements to be anti-Korean War and the U.S. military forces. And this is a really big spot for American just freedoms in general. And we see the divorce rate go up because the more people have the opportunity to be individuals, the more autonomy people have, especially minorities or including women, they can now not need to be married to survive. In the 80s, divorce boom started to slow down, 5.2 per 1,000 people. And then in the 2000s, now this may shock you because if you listen to any conservative dudes, they're going to sit there and talk about how, oh my God, there's so many divorces these days. But since the year 2000, divorce has gone down a lot. So if you remember in the 50s where everybody was like, oh, that was back when it was good. Back when there was no fault divorce. Boy, that was great. And that was at 2.5 divorces per every 1,000. The modern divorce rate in America is 2.3 per 1,000 marriages per year. We are there. We it's the same amount. So why are they complaining about divorces? I don't know how you can look at a divorce and be like, man, they should have stayed together forever. They should have worked on it when they have a completely valid reason to divorce. Or maybe, guess what? You don't need to have a valid reason to divorce. You should be able to divorce no matter what. You can just divorce. I don't know why people want the government to have a say in whether or not you need to stay married to somebody. I think that is an absolutely asinine thing. Now is here where they get on their little high horse. What are the future implications of American men leaving the dating pool? So as the number of available men decrease, Western women might see an increase in competition amongst women within the dating pool. This, coupled with the decreasing marriage rates and increasing numbers of young men who have opted out of the dating scene and are obtaining their passports, could potentially lead to a more significant demographic shift. Moreover, the movement is likely to push societal institutions to introspect and reassess their current policies and structures, especially within the areas of alimony, child support, and paternity fraud. So they're literally now trying to be on a high horse and say, by going to other countries and dating people there, you're actually helping Americans. Just say that you want to do it. You don't have to make it like a moral thing. I think this is so asinine to be like, no, actually, if I go to Colombia and date somebody from there, that means back in the United States, they're going to be like, oh shit, we should really redo our entire court system, huh? So that is all from the website of Passport Bros LLC. So let's look more into the more mainstream conservative talking points when it comes to Passport Bros. If you're not aware, this is Brett Cooper, otherwise known as Fem Shapiro. This is Brett talking about Passport Bros.
Passport Bros are a new phenomenon of Western men who are deciding to go to Asia and elsewhere to find traditional and feminine women to wife up because they are either annoyed at the insanely high standards that modern Western women hold, or they don't share the extreme woke values, or because Western women can be hypocrites who want a provider man, but they won't clean or cook. Western American women. What the f is going on? How did we allow this to happen? The men are literally fleeing. They are running away from us. By 2030, 50% of American women are going to be single, and we are letting men run away to Asia. I told you guys, it should wake us all up. This is shocking. Like, these are the consequences of feminism.
Okay, so there's our consequences of feminism, which is a wild statement as a woman to be saying that it's bad, that what is happening is bad. As Deserted Traveler points out, they're blaming women for men doing this. Why is it inherently bad in the sense of like the man is still getting married in this regard and having children theoretically if they're holding a traditional lifestyle? So why is it bad if he's going to a different country then? Isn't that innately like a racist like thing to hold in your mind of like, see, women, this is why we have to be nice to men or else they'll go out and have sex and have kids with other nationalities, right? Is that not the argument that she's making? That feels like that's the argument she's making.
Not only do we have to leave the house and work, which is the fault of the early feminists, and that's a joke because I do actually like working, but
so immediately Brett Cooper understands the inherent contradictions that exist as Brett being a woman and championing anti-feminist values, because she attributes the ability for a woman to leave the house and get a job to feminism. Which is true, because feminists fought for that right in order to provide for themselves. So that way they don't need to be tied to somebody else. And she has to put in an aside to be like, well, I actually like that part of feminism. Like it's wild. It's absolutely wild. Later on, she's talking more about American feminists.
American feminist women. I don't even just want to say American, but just like Western feminist women. They have these impossibly high specific standards. Like, I want you to treat me this way. I want you to buy everything for me and do everything for me, but you can't be toxically masculine. You can't look like this. You got to be like this. I want you to be Harry Styles, but I want you to fund my entire life. But I hate you. I hate men. I hate the patriarchy. I don't want to take care of you. I don't want to have your kids. I hate you.
Just don't date that person. It's literally that simple. I've dated women my whole life, and I've not dated a single person like that. And I'm a man, believe it or not. It's really easy to date people that you like. It's like a compulsion of them to be like, well, you need to be in a relationship with me. I need to be in a relationship with a woman because I'm a guy. And if you're bad, then that means you're robbing me of being in a relationship with you. And that's your problem. Like if I was with somebody and every single day they said to my face, I hate you because you are a man, I would just not date that person. It's super easy because they sound annoying. They sound boring. Now, if they have actual criticism of the patriarchy, then that's good. I think that's valid.
Women caused this. You cannot have your cake and eat it too. You cannot scream at men and say that they are the worst thing that ever happened to the entire world while still wanting a relationship with one of them. And you're not going to get it when you treat them that way. That's why they are all leaving. Now,
you'll hear this a lot too, is they're trying to make it seem like passport bros, it's this insane majority of men. This insane majority of men are just fed up with women. They just hate women so much and they have to go to a different country, which in my opinion is so insular. It's expensive to do this. A lot of people cannot afford to do this. You know how many people I know personally who do this? Zero. And I know a lot of guys. So it's like, I'd never even heard of this. Well, the last bit here, we're going to talk about why men are losing the battle in America.
Passport bro conversation even made its way to the Whatever Pod, and this girl sort of had a different take, but it was also really good for another reason and just started a whole other thing in my head. So let's just watch this.
They want to go be a passport bro, and I'm like, bro, you're fat, you're broke, you don't deserve a traditional wife. You need to level up.
Are you against passport bros or?
I understand the fundamentals of it for those who have done everything in life to make sure they are a man, but if you're not a man, I don't think you deserve that, honestly. If some other guy who's living here who's never had an idea of what a male figure is in his life, he's going based off of whatever little content he picks from the internet. He's saying, well, I want a traditional wife, but therefore he doesn't even have like a credit score. He doesn't even have like his life in check. He's still driving the hoopty from high school. But you want a traditional girl. Like what happens when you bring that girl over here? You're gonna basically make her a Western woman, and she's gonna realize like this guy really doesn't have his shit together. Now she's gonna cheat on you.
I mean, did she lie?
What a wild argument to have, to be like, the potential downsides of the passport bro movement is you might create more woke feminists, because I guarantee you that's not actually happening, and also that's not a bad thing inherently. So that's enough of Brett Cooper. We're going to now look at the digital bromad. So if you look up Passport Bros on Google, there will be so many articles about this guy specifically. And he was the person who was being featured in Brett Cooper's videos. So this guy is like the face of the movement. That person was featured in this article from a website called the Unhedged Capitalist. And I think, as much as I deplore capitalism and capitalists, this guy makes some very, very good points in regards to the Passport Bro movement. Recently, I watched this excellent video from Brett Cooper about Passport Bros. Excellent video, subjective. I think it was a bad video. If you're unfamiliar with the phrase, a passport bro is a man who moves from a Western country to a less developed locale, like the Philippines, Thailand, Dominican Republic, etc., where everything is cheaper and the women are perceived to be more feminine and willing to take on a traditional role of housekeeping and or raising children. Am I a passport bro? Yes and no. I wanted to maximize the purchasing power of my dollars and live a lifestyle that would be unavailable to me in the United States. However, I never counted meeting a woman as a primary reason for moving abroad. My motivations were guided by more a desire to drink beer on beautiful beaches, experience foreign cultures, and accumulate crazy experiences that would keep me warm in my rocking chair when I'm 87, and life is defined by reflection rather than anticipation. And you'll see this a lot with Passport Bros actual. It's less about the cultural and societal implications onto why they have become a passport bro, and more about just money. I think he makes good points here on how it relates to capitalism and less about these social consequences for men and women. Also, he says, my membership in the Passport Bro community is voided by my disinterest in marrying an Asian woman. Tires screech, record scratch sound effect. What an insane thing to type out. Dating foreigners has revealed to me that I would prefer to spend the rest of my life with a woman who shares my upbringing, while the Passport Bros bemoan a lack of femininity in Western women. They perhaps don't fully appreciate some of the quirks of being married to a person from a different culture. That is a very intellectual way to type some racist shit. The Unhedged Capitalist goes on to talk about needing an annual income of $100,000 to qualify for a mortgage in an average home in America. Given that the median salary is $57,000, you can see the predicament millions are in, particularly among Americans who are at the lower end of the income spectrum. Again, perfectly describing why it kind of sucks to live in America, aka Capitalism 101. Let's talk about cream. We all love talking about cream, and the cream rises to the top. So this is this person's thesis for the motivating force behind the Passport Bros movement. Most of the Passport Bros who decide to leave the country have an average or below average salary and don't expect that to change in the near future. While these bros may complain about the lack of feminine women in the West, most probably can't afford to comfortably provide for a wife to stay at home all day. Which, and again, I don't think this person and I agree on a lot of things, but I think he does a pretty good analysis here. The root of passport broness comes from an issue with economics and capitalism. And instead of people being able to recognize that that's the issue, they go to culture war topics because those are a lot easier to blame than to accept the idea that no matter what you do, the system you are in is going to oppress you every single day. It's a lot easier to think, oh, it's because women suck. That's why my life is bad. I would argue that a man earning $250,000 a year would not find it difficult to marry a Western woman who would be thrilled to stay home and cook dinner every night. That is a very salient point, because if these men that are claiming to move to these other countries solely for the reason of dating women who have traditional values, why wouldn't they move to Idaho? Why wouldn't they move to like upstate California? Why wouldn't they move to Florida? Places that have conservative populations in their own country. It's because, one, they make more money in the other countries by comparison. And two, it's like a weird fetishization of the cultures and the people there. Like, just straight up. He describes here all it takes for you to become a passport bro in Thailand or in the Philippines is $3,000 a month after tax. It's like a $50,000 salary is what he's trying to base it off of. A lot of people don't have that amount of money. So you're already just being like, oh, it's super easy to get 50K. Just you'll get a 50K salary that you can work remotely in a different country. Just do that part. I'm not going to tell you how to do that. And that will allow you to have a 2 or 3 bedroom house, own a small car or a dirt bike and a scooter, eat out 7 nights of the week, have health insurance, which again, this sounds awesome. But the reason why this isn't afforded to people isn't because feminism, it's because of capitalism. I think there's a really sentient saying that I've been thinking about a lot recently, which is don't attribute to maliciousness what can be attributed to ignorance. I don't think conservatives, or a lot of conservatives, are just innately bad people who look at facts, they look at logic, they look at reason, and they say, no, I'm just a bad person and I want women or minorities to suffer. They are just ignorant to the truth. And the truth is that capitalism is where it really all falls apart. So let's now go over to this guy. His name is Forrest Lee, who self-identifies again as a passport bro.
No matter if you're Asian, white, black, Hispanic, men, Western men in general, that are just tired of dating Western women, mainly because society nowadays, women generally just don't respect men due to pro-feminist values, woke culture values, to be frankly honest with you. And men in general are just very sick and tired of it and are largely going overseas, Latin America, Southeast Asia, Eastern Europe, to go overseas to date and marry women that still retain traditional family values, that are family-minded.
So all of that I just said, the small amount of quote-unquote props that I was giving the unhedged capitalist, because I think what can be attributed to capitalism is important. It's a very important thing to understand that a lot of men who idealize this are doing it because in America, they cannot afford to uphold a traditional lifestyle. And if they could afford it in America, they wouldn't be going to different countries. And this guy just straight up goes, nah, it's because women fucking suck, dude. Like, have you been around a Western woman? Man, they suck so much. He says men are largely leaving the United States to go be in Southeast Asia and go be in South America because of these women. And it's like, what do you mean largely? What do you mean?
However, there are some pros and cons of being a passport bro, and largely I'm going to share those experiences of being a passport bro here in Thailand. Obviously, some of the pros of being a passport bro is that women, they're just a lot nicer to you. Now, I can make the arguments of a lot of these.
I think this is a classic conservative trope. They try to speak very eloquently and quote unquote like academically and do this thing where they aren't saying anything necessarily inflammatory, but they actually are, of course. And then he puts a quote on screen which says, to be fair, women overseas are raised to give men a certain level of respect and not automatically demonize you because you have a penis. Huh? It's so funny to me to see the contradiction in the words he's saying and then on screen just completely betray like his persona to be like, it's because they hurt my feelings. Like, what do you mean demonized?
Pro-feminist TikTok influencers that are saying that we're just financially exploiting poor, uneducated women overseas, which I think it's quite racist and uneducated to make that claim. That
it's very easy to see people on TikTok and YouTube who are they can, I think, understand what's going on is bad and wrong and like innately, that they're going to have relations to go with Southeast Asians who are poor and stupid. It's so easy just to call that racist because it is. To imply that Southeast Asians are just poor and stupid is so bad. I think what's funny again here is much like the original post, the Passport Bros LLC website. He's referencing TikToks and YouTube videos as a substitute for what women in the Western world as a whole act like. That is insane. Understand that you were talking about a TikTok you saw with 3,000 likes.
A lot of the women that I've dated here in Thailand and overseas are primarily very educated, well-spoken women. And to be honest, I think they're just bitter that we have options now.
Honestly, the amount of white dudes with Thai women that are waiting to board international flights, it's an absurdity. It is crazy. Like, half of the couples in this airport right now are beautiful Thai women with super basic white dudes.
So in this exact instance, I looked up that TikTok because he is using it as an example of someone who is like making a statement for all Western women. And she has less than 2,000 followers, man. Like, what do you mean? Like, what do you mean? How is this person the evils of America? Now, this video has 1 million views, but she has less than 3,000 TikTok followers. She's not, you couldn't even call her an influencer. Like, what do you mean? Now, do I think the words she said are the best way to make this argument? No. But again, this is a person with less than 2,000 followers who they're trying to make a claim that represents all Western women.
If you want to be a feminist, if you embody woke cultural values, as a libertarian, that is your choice. I believe people should have the free will to do whatever the f they want to do. But just because you act a certain way and treat us a certain way doesn't mean we have to abide by it. With everything that I'm seeing over on TikTok and off YouTube or whatnot, the idea of family values is becoming far less and less.
So he does this entire explanation of his point, which was, it's a little valid, but it's like, you're a libertarian, man. How can I take you seriously when you probably want the age of consent laws to be removed? You're a libertarian. Like, what do you mean? And to pinpoint his entire argument, he's like, compared to TikTok, you know, all that we see on TikTok and YouTube. And it's like, just get off TikTok, man. The average age of TikTok users is like 20. They don't represent women as a whole. Like, what do you mean? You're getting served videos of women being, you know, like over the top because you're interacting with them, because you're watching them, and you're so stupid that you're like, oh man, I fucking hate this woman. I'm going to watch this whole video and then scroll and like, oh, there's another one. All women are like this. Like, I don't watch a Ben Shapiro video and be like, man, all men are like Ben Shapiro.
We just want to be around nicer women, more friendlier women, women that aren't obsessed with social media off of TikTok. You know, you can make the claim that we're financially exploiting them.
You could make that claim. So why did you bring it up?
But a lot of these women, some of the women I've dated, they come from pretty wealthy families.
Okay.
So they don't necessarily need me for my money, but we just enjoy...
Some of them. In your own argument, you're like, some of them actually have a lot of money on their own, so they don't need me for my money. The implication of that statement means that some of them do need you for your money.
Because let me tell you this, dating in America, and especially this current generation of 20-something-odd-year-old people.
Dating in America, and especially this generation of 20-something-odd people. Chat, does this guy look like he should be dating people in their 20s? I don't have a way to confirm his age, unless I do. Because in this video that he posted a month ago, he says...
So as a 37-year-old non-retiree...
My man is 37. Talking about dating people in their 20s. Get off TikTok! Get off TikTok! And I looked it up. He's only lived in Thailand for, I think, 2 years. So even if he was 35, I say a 35-year-old could probably date a 28, 29-year-old, and it wouldn't be that weird. But when you say people in their 20s, nobody, and I mean nobody, thinks of a 29-year-old. 29-year-olds are forgotten in this world. It's one of our biggest struggles as a 29-year-old myself. We're forgotten. You are dating 22-year-olds that you're meeting on TikTok and Instagram and being like, man, all women suck. Like, of course they suck. They're 20. All 20-year-olds suck.
Dating in Thailand, dating in Bangkok isn't how it was maybe 20 or 30 years ago. Nowadays, the middle class has grown substantially, and there's going to be a bit more competition. You're going to have Western Chads.
So this betrays the entire rest of his video. Because the entire video, he's talking about how it's not about using money to have these women be attracted to you and therefore using your money as a way to garner a relationship. That was his whole point. It was about how women suck and how it's not exploitative because they don't need my money. And then he opens this up by saying like, yeah, but unfortunately, people in Thailand have just become less poor overall. And then also there's other hot, rich white dudes coming in. And so I have to compete with them too. And they have more money than me. Like, you just completely betrayed your whole point.
Around, and you're going to have to compete. And, you know, as somebody that's a foreigner or a farang, you're going to be kind of at a disadvantage with the quality of women that you're going to be dating. A lot of the times you may come across a lot of bar girls, a lot of freelancers, you know, a lot of girls that aren't from Bangkok. And, you know, you might not necessarily know what their intentions are. Maybe they're trying to come up on their socioeconomic status. Maybe they come from poorer families and they're trying to date up.
I thought you weren't dating poor people, bro. I thought that was your whole shtick, is that you only date rich people. That way you're not taking advantage of them. Like, what is that, dude? Like, did you read your script? Did you not type out your script and be like, I'm going to the first 7 minutes, 3 minutes is going to be about how women fucking suck and how I hate women, even though I'm cursed to be attracted to them. I hate them. And then the next 3 minutes is also going to be about how I'm not using money to manipulate these women into relationships. And then the last 3 minutes, I'm going to talk about how I use money to manipulate women in relationships. And yeah, I mean, look, I'm not going to pretend to know the intricacies of living in Thailand. Obviously, he has a lot more lived experience than I do. But what he's describing seems to me no different than women in America. There are going to be women in America who are quote unquote gold diggers. Of course, those people exist. But at the same time, you can't be like all women in the West are like that and all women in Southeast Asia are not like that. Or in his case, he's talking specifically about Thailand, except for the ones that are because they're poor. Like, what do you mean? I'm a man. I am limited. Let's hear it from this YouTuber. Her name is Alice Capelle, who she's French, and I think she did a very good job sort of talking about passport bros here.
They want the cake, so a provider, and eat it, so not be submissive. Now, it is true that there is a very long history of Western men going to foreign countries like Colombia, the Philippines, or former colonies to have sex, date, or marry a foreign woman. Those men took advantage of their privilege, their power as Westerners to appear more attractive to foreign women who were taught to see them as the colonizer, therefore as a figure of power, authority, someone who is inherently superior to her. To marry a Westerner was a form of social climbing because it was prestigious, because it meant stability. On the other hand, some Western men reported finding foreign women more attractive for various reasons. Famous French actor Vincent Cassel once said in an interview in 2011 that he was in his jungle fever era.
I don't want to know what this guy's era's tour was like. If he was in a jungle fever era in 2011, I don't need to see about the special surprise song he was performing at his set. That term is something that I heard a lot growing up in reference to, people dating different races, right? And there's a lot of terms focused around the idea of white people specifically dating other races. And I think Alice does a really good job here explaining the historical significance of why that looks weird, quote unquote, to society. Or rather, why it can be fetishized is a better way to put it. Because it gives the white colonizer an inherent privilege or an inherent power over the person who is from a country that was potentially colonized.
It'd be foolish to believe that because colonialism ended in Asia and Africa in the 20th century, that then all of a sudden the relationships of power that had been instilled in both the colonizer and the colonized for centuries disappeared like that.
I think that's such a good, valid point. Because India was colonized by Britain until the 50s, right? I guess I should fact check that. 1947. That's not that long ago. There was something here. Digital Bromad points out of the pros of being a passport bro. And the first point he puts is you're exotic. And he doesn't mean that as use that to your advantage. I don't think he's gotten to that point of his brain, like processing that. He's literally just saying like, you're getting attention from women because you look different. You're being fetishized in a way. But to a man, that's a good thing.
What is interesting with the passport bros is the discussions it triggers in the West. Men of the men's movement have used this opportunity to tell Western women to be careful because men are leaving to find decent wives abroad. That message was then relegated by other right-wing and self-proclaimed apolitical channels on YouTube. Those people, channels, use the outrageous nature of that trend to push an anti-feminist agenda. In Backlash, Faludi talks about the pressure put on women to marry young and forge a family. She tells about a Newsweek story that declared that single, 40-years-old, college-educated white women are more likely to be killed by a terrorist than to marry.
To claim that that has any amount of validity requires so much scientific backing. Let's see if it had that.
That line was then repeated in women's magazines, in talk shows, in advice books, the same way the, quote, men are leaving to find wives abroad, circulated on social media. But when it was time to figure out where the terrorist story actually came from, a former Newsweek bureau intern explained that it started as a joke. It has no scientific background, but somehow someone took it seriously and it ended up on print.
And now is where we get back to, again, my quote of do not ascribe to maliciousness what can be ascribed to ignorance. And this is where that quote does not apply, because conservative talking heads love taking little pieces of quotable shit that is scary and probably rooted in like in this specific instance, you get like some nice Islamophobia in there with the word terrorist in the 90s. And you get to just push an entire propaganda based off of it. And that is so malicious. And that is not ignorant of anything at all. You know what you're doing. Candace Owens knows what she's doing. Brett Cooper knows what she's doing. Ben Shapiro knows what he's doing when they're talking on this issue. I think someone like this guy is probably more ignorant. That does not mean that he is, like, in my opinion, a good guy for doing it. Or, like, I don't think that like absolves him of any guilt. I think he really should do some self-reflecting on the lifestyle that he's trying to advertise and say is like this really innately really cool fun thing to do. People like Brett Cooper who know what they're doing and they don't even really care about the movement. In Brett Cooper's video, she says multiple times, like, I don't even fully agree with the passport bro movement here. Like, I don't agree with what he's doing with his lifestyle, aka sleeping around. But it doesn't matter because she can use it to push a propaganda point that traditional relationships are good and that Western feminism is ruining the world. And I think in the end, the main thing to blame is just capitalism. I think as the Unhedged Capitalist points out, if these men, these insecure men, could supply for their family, their idea of a nuclear traditional family of one wife and two kids and a white picket fence, and they could do that on their salary alone in the United States, they would do that. I genuinely think they would. However, when right-wing talking heads use this to now push a racist and misogynistic point in order to further capitalism and make money off of it, it further polarizes men into believing that what they're doing is actually good. And you can see that in stuff like this. Passport Bros LLC is claiming that as we, Passport Bros, boldly go where no person has ever gone before, which is countries with millions of people living in it, and do our thing, we will change America for the better. These are the same people who don't want immigrants. Absolutely. I think that's all. That's my other point is capitalism is the big bad and always will be. I truly believe that. What's the point of racism? It's to blame somebody else. Any amount of xenophobia, it's to blame a certain group of people for why your life sucks, because it's easier to accept that it's a certain group of people's fault and not just literally you're being perpetually crushed by the system you exist in. It's just so much easier to like get that through your head and like survive. And ultimately you just have to survive day to day. Even men who are benefiting from patriarchy are going to suffer under capitalism and patriarchy in the sense of they're trying to survive. And if they're being rewarded by being misogynistic and racist, then it makes sense that they're going to keep doing that. They do sell bags. Their merch is really bad, dude. Like, so this is their bags. These are new arrivals. Passport Bros Extreme Streetwear. Oh yeah, I didn't even see this before. Oh yeah, that's how you know it's a good cause. When you have to hijack a social movement and go for Gamer Lives Matter. Skateboard Extreme. What? This is such AI generated, like, wolf doing kickflip with skateboard graphic. Okay, now here's the bad part is I want this. Beer is the answer, but I can't remember the question. Come on, that goes hard. Ironically, of course. And then they put mojitos in it. Oh, it's so perfectly contradictory. Like, you have a masculine, like, okay, I want a beer no matter what the situation. And they put a fucking mojito in it.